There we go. All right. You hit it, Jay. Thank you. Hope everybody's doing well and having a good day so far. We're going to learn Rashi from the fourth Aliyah in Parshas Behar, which is the Parsha for this week. Short couple of Rashis, but a beautiful one. A couple of beautiful ones. At the beginning of the fourth Aliyah, the Torah begins to describe the situation of a person having to sell themselves into slavery or having to sell their land because of a debt that they had incurred, which is, of course, one of the main topics that we come to in Shemitah and Yovel, which is the time when debts are released and property is returned. But there are other processes for that to happen, even in the interim, in between the 7 years. So the Torah describes the situation, if a person had become impoverished, and because of that, they had to sell their land, Uvad goalo akarov elav, if a goel, a redeemer who's close to him comes, v'ga'al es mimkar achiv, he's allowed to come and redeem that which his brother or his relative had sold. So if I, chas v'shalom, was in debt, no more money to pay back my debts, I could sell my land, my ancestral land, to someone. And then if in the interim, before the Shemitah year came, a relative of mine who had the money to pay off the debt would be able to come, they would be able to pay off the debt and return the land. While that's always possible in any situation, in any country, in any given, predicament that a person would find themselves in, normally it would be subject to the desire of the creditor to go for this plan, right? So if I was living in Silver Spring and I sold my home or whatever it is to someone to pay off my debt, and then a relative of mine came with the money and said, you know what, I'll give you the money, you give him his house back. So the person could say, no, too bad. I have the house now. It was a full sale, and I could do with it. I really like living here. I don't want to give it up. But in this case, in Israel in specific, when it comes to achuzas karka, when it comes to these ancestral territorial plots of land, the process of the goel is one where not only do they have the option of doing this, but the creditor would be required to do this. So if my relative came and said, hey, I'm going to give you the money to pay off the rest of this person's debt, you give me the land back, so the person would be required to do that. The Geulas Karka is allowed to happen and encouraged to happen, whether in the Shemitah year when it just finally happens automatically, or before then when a goal is able to come sooner. There's a few pieces of this pasuk, small details of this pasuk, which Rashi picks up on, which all point to one thing, which is the tremendous connection of a person to their ancestral plot and to the land of Israel as a whole, which I think is very beautiful. So Rashi says, Chiyamuch umachar, when a person becomes impoverished and they sell, Melamed she'ein adam rashai limkor sadeu ela machmas dochak oni. The fact that it says, Kiyamuch achicha umachar, when you become impoverished and sell, indicates to us that the only reason you would be allowed to begin with to sell your ancestral land is in a very exigent circumstance, when you have no money left, you can't pay off your debts, you have no other assets, there's nothing left to do. This is the last resort, which shows us that in general, one is not allowed to sell their land in the land of Israel. And again, that's indicative of the special connection a person has to two things. Number one, to land in Israel, but also to ancestry, to their past, to their history, to their heritage, which they came from. If land has been in a certain family for a long, long time, you don't just get rid of that, which I think is two very valuable lessons. One about our connection to the land of Israel in general, and the Kedusha and the specialness of land. We don't give it up easily. It's somewhere we need to feel connected to, we need to feel rooted in, but also to our own personal family histories, to the land, to the things that belong to our family. We're part of the chain of passing that along, and it's okay to break the chain in order to save your life, in order to be able to save your finances, your well-being, to put food on your table, to not become a slave in certain ways to others. But those are quite exigent circumstances and exceptional circumstances that would warrant that, meaning a person's own individual life is still more important than their ancestral heritage or being a link in a chain, but it's pretty much the only thing that's more important than being a link in a chain, which is quite a significant statement. Furthering that same concept, it says, when a person becomes impoverished and they sell of their ancestral land, So Rashi says, me achuzaso v'lo kula. It doesn't say ki amucha chicha umachar achuzaso. When you become impoverished and you sell your land, it says you sell from your land and not all of your land. Limed derech eretz yeshayer sadeh la'atzmo. Even when you're selling, you should still leave a portion of land for yourself. So you always have that stronghold. You always have that connection alive. Again, furthering the same point. V'ga'alas mim karachiv, the goal can come along and redeem what the brother, relative had sold. Ve'ein ezeh halokeach yachol le'akev. As I mentioned before, the chiddush here of this passage, the chiddush of the law of the Torah, the insight here that's different than any other business transaction circumstance, is that the lokeach, the one who bought it, the creditor, so to speak, would be obligated to sell the land back to the goel. And that's not something that would exist in other business arrangements where a person could say, hey, I bought it and I don't want to sell it back to you. All of these three Rashis together seem to point to the two principles which I said before. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Have a good Lag BaOmer.
Thank you. You
Thank
too.
you. You too, Rabbi.
See you tomorrow.